It's time for
DodgerHeads. What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Bruce Kuntz, who, by the way, was putting eye drops in his eyes a mere 1.5 seconds before we came live. So I'll just start. Computer troubles, eye drops in. Bruce is dialed as we start this show.
Oh, yeah, we're ready to go. I finished a full 3-game weekend, first weekend of the Dirtbags season today at Blair Field Broadcasting, and that was a blast, and I'm glad to be doing a little work doubleheader thing today of announcing baseball at 1 o'clock and then now on here to talk Dodger baseball at 7.
I love it. Normally, Anthony, on Sunday, there are reports that the UV mask he purchased may have had some mishaps when he tried it on himself. No, I'm just kidding. Anthony and Bruce swapping on Tuesday. Anthony being a good sport. Bruce's schedule, as he mentioned, a little more hectic in the spring, so Anthony is flexing to accommodate. So we very much appreciate Anthony. Nothing to worry about on his end, and who knows, maybe he got a little extra time for golf. But here's the big news here, Bruce. 5.5 days away from the Dodgers playing a baseball game against the Angels, 12:10 p.m. next Saturday. We have made it. This is our last Sunday show with no baseball.
How about that? We're all the way back. We talked about it last week that was the last show before the Dodgers finally report to camp. Now that part's done. And then now we finally get games to talk about. I'm just excited to have more content that isn't just speculative.
Totally. Absolutely. Agree on my end. Plan for today. Some spring training updates on Brusdar, Graterol, Evan Phillips, Gavin Stone, Kike Hernandez, as well as a conversation about the latest Ben Rortvedt transaction. He trails Michael Ciani by 1, in case you are keeping track. We're also going to talk about some updates MLB has issued about the automated balls and strike system. And ESPN and MLBTV have announced pricing and details about how we all can watch Dodgers games from wherever we are watching them. So we're going to go over that as well. But, Bruce, let's start with some of the news and notes, players, coaches beginning to talk down at spring training. Let's start with Brusdar Graterol. This is a guy that a lot of people, I think, are excited about coming back in 2026. Unfortunately, the first report we're getting so far, Bruce, not a positive one. Dave Roberts spoke and said that the Dodgers are slow playing him this spring. He said the ball has not come out the way that they expected it to, mainly talking about velocity. It seems like that wasn't where they wanted. And Dave Roberts said, quote, "It will take some time with Graterol." Are you surprised, given how little he has played in the last 2 years, that we're still having this conversation at the beginning of spring?
I think that surprise is the wrong word to use, because even through last year, it was kind of at a point where I feel like he's in one of those injury spirals where there kind of isn't a timeline, and you can't really place a expectation on when a guy like that will be back, when it just seems like it's an open-ended question of, he'll be back as soon as he's healthy, and you kind of don't know exactly when that'll be. He threw 7 games in 2024, didn't pitch at all last year. So it's been a long time since we saw the bazooka on the mound that we all remember and everything. So I think it's very unfortunate to see that. I also think that it would have been a little surprising to me if they brought him into camp and said, we're going to ramp you up completely in February, even knowing all the injury issues, and wind up emptying the tank by the time June flips around. So who knows if there's any gamesmanship at play with this about trying to manage his innings this season. They are going to have a crowded pitching staff to start the year, with some guys having to shift to the bullpen. And so, who knows if that could play into it a little bit. I just hope that by the time October rolls around and down the stretch of the season, when the games really start to matter, I hope that he's back and able to be the pitcher that he was before, because he was a good, reliable guy in the Dodger bullpen, and it's just unfortunate that it's been so long since he was able to be that now.
When you see an update like this one, does your mind immediately go to, like the Dodgers are just saving his arm for the end of the season, or because I think there's two ways. You could say, hey, the Dodgers are slow playing this. They're not going to expect him to make 75 appearances this year. So if you're only going to get 45 to 50, you might as well stagger those and let them start in May rather than in March. The flip side is he hasn't pitched in basically 2 years, as you just laid out. And so I get slow playing, but I also kind of just want to see the guy throw a baseball and throw it hard so that I can believe that he's capable of it.
Yeah, I really don't like, my instinct isn't to say that this is just a gamesmanship thing. I only throw that out as like it's something to consider in the equation of he could be throwing 98 instead of 100, and they say, you know what, let's just like take it slow, like just to be safe. I think my immediate reaction to this is it sounds like that he's just still working through the injury stuff. And I'm not really reading too far into it past that. I think that we're just kind of in the same point that we were at last year, where there was never really a concrete timeline. You were always just waiting to hear updates and find out whether he's throwing or not. And it sounded like by the end of the year, he was kind of doing his own thing in Arizona and rehabbing and stuff. And so it just sounds like that it's a continuation of the last time we had heard from him last year, which was just a TBD sort of timeline.
It's crazy to think he had labrum surgery in November of 2024. So we're talking 15 months ago was when he had shoulder surgery. And that was after a shoulder injury cost him most of the 2024 season as well, had a hamstring injury in there as well. But it's just a brutal combination. And we've said multiple times on this show, if you're new to kind of baseball injuries, shoulder is worse than elbow nowadays. Like when you have shoulder surgery, it is a way bigger mystery about what it is going to look like coming back. And I would add for a guy like Graterol, Bruce, and I'm curious if you agree, for a guy like Graterol, who is so dependent on throwing 101 miles an hour with that shoulder, it feels even more important. When Kershaw comes back from shoulder surgery, it's like, whatever. It goes from 93 to 89 on the fastball, and he wasn't really blowing people away anyways. For Graterol, the margins feel a lot more slim, which is why I'm a little nervous about how he's going to be able to recover.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation because no pitcher in baseball can afford to lose ticks and expect to still be the same player that they were. But I think you're absolutely right about Graterol's the sort of archetype that his whole career has really been, the whiffs haven't been as high as you would think they'd be with the stuff. And that power sinker has always played as a soft contact sort of pitch. And as soon as that loses some miles per hour, it's already not a pitch that has been getting a ton of whiffs in his career. And then all of a sudden the contact could get a little bit harder. For me, I think the big thing is just getting him back on the field. And I think that has to happen when he's healthy. And so the assumption for me is that he won't be back on the field until he's able to pitch like Brusdar, Graterol. And that's the thing that just seems to be, who knows how long it could wind up being.
Yeah. Another injury update we got was Evan Phillips. And this one, not a surprise. I think while there was optimism about Brusdar, Graterol potentially being able to pitch this spring, be ready for opening day, that was not the case with Evan Phillips. He describes a loose target of July and August, but said his main goal is, quote, to be my best version in the postseason. That was from Jack Harris. So the news on Phillips, July, August, basically you're looking at a trade deadline acquisition of Evan Phillips, which is a pretty dang good trade deadline acquisition.
Especially when we all just went through that trade deadline in 2025 when the relief was the number one thing the Dodgers needed, and the relief prices on the market were just ridiculous. So they got Brock Stewart and called it a day. Getting Evan Phillips back at the deadline or somewhere around there will absolutely accomplish that goal. And the reason the Dodgers are signing him now and paying him a decent amount of money to spend most of the year on the injured list is because that money is being paid in place of prospects they'd have to part with at the deadline to go get somebody else. And there's so much unpredictability around the trade market that this is how we've seen the last few years with the Dodgers. They do what they can in the offseason to try their best to prevent having to really do anything at the trade deadline. And this is one of those moves.
And again, last year they did nothing. People got pissed. They went out and won the World Series anyway. So hopefully we get the same end result. The other note on Evan Phillips, by the way, he was asked if his return to LA was ever in doubt. He said not necessarily. He said there were lots of teams that checked in, but he was never basically not going to be a Dodger, which I do think speaks to the piece of the Dodgers team building equation, Bruce, that I'm not sure we talk about enough, which is how badly guys just want to be here. We talked about the Max Muncy contract last show. People didn't like my opinion that maybe it wasn't as great of a deal as it was being made out to be. But the point still is Max Muncy wanted to be here. Evan Phillips wanted to be here. There's the reports about Edwin Diaz not even going back to the Mets asking for a counter because presumably he wanted to be here. That is an underlying current of all of this is guys simply want to be a part of this group. Yes, they're getting paid at the top of the market and things work out well financially for most guys. But I do feel like that has to be said when everybody else is complaining about how the Dodgers put a team together.
Yeah, really, it's how could you not want to be part of this Dodgers group? They do more winning than anybody else. They're known throughout baseball as treating their players fantastic. Their rehab process and the athletic training is all the best. The development for pitchers and hitters is near the top of the game. There literally is not a flaw. And then also, by the way, you get to go live in LA in Southern California where everybody wants to be. So the Dodgers are the place to be. And I think especially if you put yourself in Evan Phillips' shoes going into an offseason after when you're already like midway through rehab from surgery, there's no reason that you'd want to go and put yourself in a brand new locker room with brand new trainers, nobody who has known you for years and been part of the rehab that you've been going through so far. That's, I think, why like hearing his words make a lot of sense, because thinking about that situation, the easily best road forward for him is to stick around the same people, the same doctors, the same trainers that have already been nursing him. And that's the best path forward to get back to who he was before, be able to compete in the World Series again, hopefully, and then hit the market again next offseason fully healthy and back to the Evan Phillips that he was before the surgery.
And think about this. What other organization is going to allow a player to do what is in their own personal best interest as well? Like if Evan Phillips goes and signs with a team like the San Francisco Giants, let's just say, and you get to like July 22nd, and Phillips is like 95% back, but the Giants are 4 games back of the wild card. And they're like, yo, it's go time, buddy. And we need you. And we might need you on back-to-back days. And we might need you 3 out of 5 as well. That's the other piece of this with the Dodgers is Evan Phillips knows the Dodgers don't even care if he pitches before September. And so he can have as much time as he needs to build up. When he comes back, he's not going to be put into difficult situations. He's not going to be the closer. The Dodgers are never going to risk his own personal health in order to go get a random win on September 2nd. And I think that has to be mentioned as well, because I don't think you could trust other teams not to do that. We saw this with Josh Hader, and it was a super bizarre story where he basically said to the Brewers, I don't trust you to do what is in my own personal best interest. And I'll let people have their own opinions about Josh Hader and whether that was the right thing to do. But I do think guys don't have to worry about that when they come to a team like the Dodgers with the expectations they have.
And that's especially true for Phillips, who's been in the locker room through many years now and part of this operation when guys like Dave Roberts, they know Evan Phillips and there's a trust built there that they know that as a player, the Dodgers aren't going to run you into the ground when you've been part of the operation for this long. I think it's why guys like Max Muncy are signing team-friendly extensions. It's why once the players get to LA, they want to stay, and everybody on the outside hears about it and wants to become part of that fray and family that the Dodgers have built.
Absolutely. Let's shift gears. Let's go to Kike Hernandez. The other update we got, reports now coming out that in 2025, he played most of the season with a torn muscle in his non-throwing arm. That would be his left arm. He says he'll miss a month or 2 of the season. Brandon Gomes suggests it will likely be closer to mid-season for Kike Hernandez. I know a lot of Dodger fans, Bruce, when the news of him signing, I'm not going to say a lot. There was a handful of Dodger fans when he signed who pointed to his regular season stats and even his postseason stats last year and said, look, we like the guy. We understand the vibes, but like he's not very good at baseball anymore. I do think the report that he was playing through a torn muscle in his left arm has to soften that blow a little bit, right?
It's important for sure. Like you have to know that when you look at the numbers that he was playing through an injury. I also think like we have to keep the expectation relative to what Kike Hernandez is. And I don't think there's anybody arguing that the Dodgers are bringing back Kike Hernandez because they expect him to back clean up in October and be some huge bopper. That's not what this stage of career that he is or really has ever been. He's back, I think, in large part because first they have a need to fill a platoon bat against left-handed pitching at third base. As soon as he's healthy, he'll be the platoon partner with Max Muncy. That's easy. Sign it off. Dodgers are happy with that. And then the big thing is the value that he brings in the locker room. He's known throughout baseball. You talk to anybody in pro ball, and they've heard about Kike Hernandez and how important he is in that clubhouse as a vibes guy, because that stuff actually matters in a big league clubhouse, and just as a rock to hold it all together. And those are the kind of things that I think the Dodgers really consider. And a lot of times nowadays when people talk about sabermetric front offices and front offices that manage through the X and O's and lose a little bit of the personality, that's why the Dodgers are really good at being in the middle, because they can recognize those things and say, there's not really, you can't look at Kike Hernandez's savant page and expect him to have like a huge breakout season or something, but so much of his value is real value that helps the team win, that gets brought in stuff that is off the field. And then he also can do just enough on the field to still help in that regard too.
Yeah, I'm with you. Again, if you're looking at his counting stats and looking for a reason for why the Dodgers would sign him, I would understand. You're going to see a guy who's been a below average hitter every single year for the last 4 years and basically 6 of the last 7 years. However, when you look at the postseason performance, again, unless you don't believe that certain guys get better in the postseason and other guys get worse in the postseason, it's hard to argue with what Kike Hernandez has done. He was bad last year, 80 weighted runs created plus. Again, playing with a torn muscle in his left arm. Prior to that, the 5 seasons prior to that, he was an above average offensive player in the postseason. And when I say above average, I mean like well above average for Kike Hernandez. And so that's what the Dodgers are paying for. It's the versatility. It's the clubhouse. It's the postseason. The regular season stuff is we don't really care about that. And once you get that picture of Kike in your head, it all makes a lot more sense.
And worst case, he's a guy on the bench that certainly has value there, can play, can play all over the field. And a lot of times at the end of last year, the Dodger bench was a huge weakness where they were looking around and wishing they had another sort of veteran. That's why they traded for Alex Call. The bench felt weak. And even if Kike isn't good enough to hold the platoon role, if he moves down the depth chart into just like being a bench utility man, like he would be perfectly good enough to fill that role, worst case scenario. So signing Kike Hernandez is really only upside, and there's not any risk at all.
Absolutely. The next injury update we got, I shouldn't say really an injury update because we're talking about a healthy player now, and that's Gavin Stone. And everything we just said about shoulder injuries applies to Gavin Stone because he too had a shoulder injury. And to be perfectly honest, basically had shoulder surgery around the same time as Brusdar Graterol, missing the entire 2025 season. But the good news on Stone is that he is back and he is pitching. And so far, as of the day after he pitched, we have not gotten any reports that there were problems. Through live batting practice on yesterday, so it'd be Valentine's Day, Saturday, he threw live BP against Shohei Ohtani, Will Smith, and Hesung Kim. I believe Ohtani walked. I don't know what the results were on the other two, but this is huge. The fact that everything we just said with Graterol, the fact that Stone is back and pitching and throwing live BP at this point is honestly huge for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time talking about the Dodger rotation and how we expect the Dodgers to slow play so many of those guys and be so careful. And it's because of someone like Gavin Stone getting back and banking on his health a little bit that they're able to be so careful with everybody else. And I also think it's easy to overlook and kind of forget how good Gavin Stone was in that 2024 season before he got hurt. It wasn't perfect all the time or anything like that. So it's not like we're talking about one of those like aces up there, but he put up a nearly full season, 25 starts with a 3.53 ERA. Like that's a guy that was eating innings at a pretty high level that any team in baseball would love to have a guy at the back of their rotation that can put up those kind of numbers. So the question for him is the stuff back where it was before. And he was also like primed to go into last year to try and improve on those numbers, make the necessary adjustments heading into like his second real full big league season. He had a full year of rehab between that, but if the stuff gets back to where it was before and then he can make those tweaks, I really think Gavin Stone has a chance to be a much higher level pitcher and a bigger part of the operation than it seems like people are anticipating going in.
I'm with you. If Gavin Stone, if I knew he was going to be healthy for all of 2026, you would hear me talk about him a lot more because he's a guy that like the mental makeup everybody in the Dodgers talks about is through the roof. And I know you're a prospect guy, so you pay attention to this kind of stuff, but I've told this story 100 times. And so I apologize if people have heard it, but I remember 4 years ago, I'm talking to Rob Hill, the Dodgers pitching coordinator, and I'm like asking him about every pitching prospect that I can think of. There's like 15 guys on my list. I get to the end, and Gavin Stone is not on my list because he is on nobody's prospect radar at this point. And I said to Rob, I said, is there anybody missing? And like literally as soon as I finished the sentence, he said Gavin Stone. He says, I have no idea why nobody talks about this guy, but he is an absolute dog, and just watch out. And sure enough, like 6 months later, he's in every top 100 list. And then a couple years later, like you said, he's throwing the most innings of any Dodgers pitcher in 2024 and doing so effectively. So if I knew he was going to be healthy and he was going to come back from shoulder surgery and look like the guy that we saw, who, by the way, at age 25 in 2024, if that version of Gavin Stone is back, I think he makes a lot of starts for this Dodgers team.
There was a very large part of that season where he felt like one of the main rocks of the team and the whole pitching staff, that he was the reliable guy to give the ball to. And I think that 3.53 ERA, if I remember correctly, there were a couple of starts at near the end of the year that didn't go as well, and the numbers kind of ballooned because it was lower than that for the majority of the season. And I really think that he's not the, blow your doors off with stuff sort of type that throws 100 miles an hour or anything like that. But he's always had that mix of the changeup has always been really good. And then after he struggled in his very, very rookie season in 2023, that would have been, I think. Yeah. Then he made the adjustments, started throwing a lot of sinkers and cutters and stuff like that to tunnel with the changeup. And he just gets outs. That's what he's been since he had that breakout season in the minor leagues. He's a guy that gets outs and has all the mental makeup that you mentioned. He's a guy that can really be a big part of this team this year as long as he's healthy. Yeah.
I mean, he had a 22-game stretch in the middle of that season where his ERA was sub 3, 2.97. That's basically, I'm cherry picking here, but his first 2 starts were not very good. 8 innings, 8 earned. His last start was 5 innings, 5 earned. Take those 3 out and the 22 in the middle, 11 and 4, 127.1 innings and a 2.97 ERA. Pretty freaking impressive for a guy in Gavin Stone.
Don't count him out.
Let's shift gears. Last one here. Let's talk about everybody's favorite former Dodgers catcher. That would be Ben Rortvedt. Excuse me. Matthew Moreno's favorite former catcher is Austin Barnes. Some people's favorite former catcher was DFA'd a few days ago, claimed by the Mets today. I did not realize at the time he and Austin Barnes are hanging out over in Mets camp. Unbelievable stuff for Matthew Moreno and others. This was a risk, Bruce. We knew that once 60-day injured list spots opened up, the fact that he had made it all the way to the Dodgers wasn't a guarantee he was going to make it all the way back. Again, claimed by the Mets. I would say from the get-go here, Bruce, I'm not convinced that on opening day he will be on the Mets roster. I think there's a real chance that he comes back to the Dodgers, gets DFA'd again, and they try this whole charade for a third time. I think that's in play. But your thoughts on Rortvedt in New York and whether this means the Dodgers' time with him is over?
Yeah, I think that thinking about like the possibility of having him go straight through waivers again, I know there were a lot of people that were sort of thinking that, hey, he made it through waivers all the way until the Dodgers. When they claimed him, they should have just put him right back on waivers and tried to sneak him through. I think that there might be a little bit for other teams around baseball that they would say, we're just not going to let the Dodgers do what they're trying to do here and put in a waiver claim just out of spite to say we're not going to let them game the system like this. So who knows if the Mets are doing that or if they think that they have a role for him. I'm with you that he could absolutely be back in Dodger camp before the end of spring training. Who knows? I also just come back to not feeling like this is that big a deal. Rortvedt was great for the Dodgers in the role that he was needed in, but he wasn't ever going to be on the 26-man roster to start the year unless an injury happened. And the Dodgers also have a couple of AAA catchers in camp. So having him in AAA would be nice for sure. Like, don't get me wrong, third catcher in Oklahoma City, he would be great in that role. But it's not like that this is losing a guy that was going to be starting or playing a huge role on the big league roster either way.
Yeah, well, you kind of touched on it, but this was my next question is, do the Dodgers have a catching depth problem? Clearly, they want Ben Rortvedt as their third catcher, not on the 40-man roster. Otherwise, they wouldn't have signed him to the contract, claimed him. They did DFA him. So, like, again, I want to balance what I'm saying. They clearly want him off the 40-man roster and in Oklahoma City. They also clearly do not want him on the 26-man roster in Los Angeles. We need to say both of those things. But currently, here are the other Dodger catchers besides Will Smith and Dalton Rushing that are in the organization. Smith and Rushing, the only guys on the 40-man roster. Here are the 5 other guys who are either in the organization or non-roster invitees. That's Eliezer Alfonso, Griffin Lockwood Powell, Nelson Quiroz, Chucky Robinson, and Sebi Zavala are the 5 guys in camp. Now, you want a bunch of guys in camp because you got a lot of catchers who need to throw bullpens, and you need somebody to catch those guys. Will Smith also heading to the World Baseball Classic. Of these 5, like, is there anybody in this group, Bruce, that could make sense as the number 3 catcher in the Dodgers organization in 2026?
Yeah, I think really all 4 of those guys that are in AAA could fill that role. Griffin Lockwood Powell's been in the organization for a few years now, and he's 28 years old. He's hit pretty well through the minor leagues, and is kind of the catcher first base sort of hybrid that can fill it fine. I think he's more of a like 4A kind of player that you think about, but he's not going to be terrible. Chucky Robinson and Sebi Zavala are both over the age of 30. Zavala's had some time in the big league, so I think that he's the one that really like jumps out to the top for me. But the big thing is it's not that hard to find a backup catcher. If the Dodgers suddenly did not become satisfied with one of these guys and an injury happened to Smith or Rushing, they could always go outside the organization too. It's not like that they're landlocked to having to use one of these guys as the 3rd catcher in the organization by any means. So I think having them through camp, like you said, it's great to have a lot of catchers in big league camp for all those reasons. And especially once Smith leaves, we're going to see these guys quite a bit in the big league spring training games. But the one that you want to have is a good backup catcher on the 26th to start the year. And the Dodgers have that with Dalton Rushing. If you have to go deeper on the depth chart than that, there's a lot of ways to pivot and make it work that doesn't have to necessarily be in-house.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, because that's kind of my first reaction when people have asked me this question is 2 catchers would have to get injured for this question to even matter at all. Because if Will Smith gets hurt, yes, Sebi Zavala might be the guy who gets called up, but guess how often Sebi Zavala is going to play? Basically never, if Dalton Rushing becomes the everyday catcher. So unless Smith and Rushing are both hurt, this conversation isn't all that important. It's also worth pointing out, and this is where I make all the Ben Rortvedt people mad again, like, he was DFA'd and cleared waivers during the season last year by the Rays before being traded to the Dodgers, which is why he was not on the 40-man roster when he got sent to LA. And so guys like Ben Rortvedt are going to be available out there. They're going to get DFA'd. They're going to be cycled through. They're going to be in the minors somewhere. And so if the Dodgers don't like these guys, there's going to be alternatives out there. But I also think just because you've never heard of or paid attention to Griffin Lockwood Powell doesn't necessarily mean he's a whole lot worse than Ben Rortvedt. Like, Ben Rortvedt played well. I would go as far as to say Ben Rortvedt is clearly better than the 5 guys I just mentioned, because the Dodgers are trying to pay him $1.25 million to play for the OKC Dodgers. However, I don't think the gap between him and whoever becomes the best of these 5 is probably all that big.
Yeah, I mean, I think having Ben Rortvedt would absolutely be a luxury because he's a guy that has experience with the big league pitching staff, caught him all the way through October at times, and clearly was liked in the clubhouse and all those things. So that's all pluses that would be great to have in the organization, but it's not the kind of thing that they're selling out for, because otherwise they wouldn't be DFAing him. They'd find a way to make it work with 3 catchers on the roster, but that clearly isn't that big a priority.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, couple more news items to get to before we get to some questions. Let's talk about the MLB rules around automated balls and strikes. This, of course, is coming to Major League Baseball in 2026. They have finalized how this is going to play out. This was announced at Spring Training Media Day just last week. As we all know, 2 challenges per team in the regular season to start the game. You get 1 extra challenge per inning in extra innings. That was part of the news that was announced. If you get your challenge right in the 9 innings, the first 9 innings, if you get the challenge right, you get to keep it. So theoretically, you could have unlimited challenges if you keep getting it right. Some other news and notes: if the umpire believes the challenge was influenced by a fielder or the dugout or a runner, they can disallow it. So the only 3 people who can call for a challenge are the catcher, the pitcher, and the hitter. If the umpire believes anybody else has indicated that a challenge should be called, they can disallow it, and it's not able to move forward. This is my favorite one. You cannot challenge pitches thrown by position players. That's easily my favorite clarification here. So Kike Hernandez doesn't have to worry about that. They also noted that they'll be measuring hitter heights and that it's a pretty good chance it's going to shrink the strike zone for many players. So hitters who challenge pitches are probably going to be faring better than catchers and pitchers because things are going to be moving in their direction. Remind me, Bruce, are you pro all of this automated balls and strike stuff?
I'm pro challenge system. I think the way they're implementing it now is my favorite because it keeps the human element in the game, and it allows for some of the really bad calls that everybody in the field, the hitter, the catcher, the pitcher, all know was a bad call, and allows for those ones to get reversed. I sort of approach this with the same thought process as when they first introduced replay into like out and safe calls on bases and things like that. Like, this is the basic level of the game isn't losing its nature, but it's just going to be a little bit more refined, where bad calls and mistakes by umpires can't change the course of games. I don't think that it's the end of the world if a pitch misses the outside corner by less than half an inch and it's just shaving, stuff like that. Those are the ones that I think if you challenge and you get burned, cool. But those are the calls that through all of baseball history, if they go one way or the other, the most that a hitter will give is maybe a head tilt of like, I don't know, but it's not like they're dropping their batting gloves and freaking out about it. Those are the ones that this challenge system is going to be there to correct.
Yeah. And if you've seen it in spring training last year or in minor league parks, it's awesome. It is so fast. You all look at the Jumbotron, and the Jumbotron shows an like robotic picture where it's like a tennis match, if you've seen that, where it shows you exactly where the pitch landed, and everybody in the stadium at the same time, including the umpire, including the batter and the pitcher, all find out in real time, strike or ball. I believe they said the ABS system added approximately 57 seconds to each game, so you're not going to have to worry about that. And there just aren't going to be very many challenges. To your point, I think it's going to be the egregious ones. I remember last spring, the Dodgers talking about Dave Roberts was making a joke about Max Muncy, and it was like, they've already set up guardrails for when guys are like basically allowed to challenge. It's like, if you're deep into a count, then we don't want you challenging and wasting it on a pitch that might not matter. Versus like, you have to consider the outcome. If there's 2 outs, are there runners on? Who's up? All those types of things. And so I'm sure the Dodgers have a plan for all of this, but 2 challenges per team to start the game. And again, if you get it right, you get to keep on, keep challenging indefinitely.
I think that might be my favorite thing about it is now you lose the ability for any hitter or pitcher or catcher. Nobody can complain about the strike zone anymore because first, if you don't like it, challenge it. And second, if you don't have your challenges left, that's your own fault. So shut up and move on. So I think that's the best part of it is, and I'm not even really blaming players or anybody for complaining about zones in the past, because these past couple of years, it's not even really fair to umpires how difficult it is to make balls and strike calls nowadays with the stuff that these pitchers have. It's a really difficult job, and the umpires are still nearly perfect, but the reason that it's nearly perfect and not perfect sometimes has felt like that it changes the outcomes of games. So I'm just glad that they're doing something to get in the way of that.
I don't know if you saw the quote from Chris Sale that was going around on social media. And I understand there are multiple ways to interpret what Chris Sale was saying. To me, it sure sounded like an old get off my lawn guy, basically saying, I will never be challenging pitches because I don't agree with the entire system that we have to challenge pitches, which is just like the ultimate old baseball guy thing to say. And maybe I'm reading into that because he is an old baseball guy and he sort of seemed like he said that. But I just can't imagine how many people are out there who are like, I hate the challenge system. And my way of protesting is I will never challenge a pitch. It's like so stupid to me and yet so entertaining at the same time.
Yeah, I think that maybe Chris Sale is just the biggest fan of umpires. Maybe he wishes that he could have been an umpire instead of a pitcher, and he just respects the trade so much. He doesn't want to step on their toes.
Yeah, he did say, I have never called balls and strikes in my life. That's not my job. He also said, like, something that could be interpreted as I trust my catcher and my catcher will be doing that, which that is like the appropriate thing, by the way, is the catcher should be the one challenging pitches, not the pitcher. So it's possible that's what he was ultimately saying. I just laughed at how he phrased it because, again, the stereotype in my mind is you're one of the oldest pitchers in the league. This is what an old guy would say.
He fit the bill immediately. I agree with you that if I were running a clubhouse, my first rule would be pitchers. You're not allowed to. The pitchers are generally too emotional. The only pitcher that I would ever imagine I'd trust for this is someone like Zach Greinke, and he's retired now, so it should only be catcher's job. Hitters and catchers, if it were up to me, would be the only ones that would be doing it.
I believe a couple of years ago, I was in AAA and I was chatting with John Rooney, who's no longer in the Dodgers org. I believe he made his major league debut with the Marlins last year. Just the absolute best guy to talk to, nicest human being. And I think we were talking about this, and he basically said like relief pitchers are definitely not allowed to challenge. Like there's clearly a hierarchy of like who gets to challenge, and I see some people in the chat like, should Andy Pages and Teoscar Hernandez have the ability to challenge? Probably not. Like I've joked, Max Muncy can challenge whenever he wants to because that guy feels like he has the best read of the strike zone. Freddie Freeman, same thing. Ohtani, Mookie Betts, like you name it. Like I feel like once you get past like Will Smith, maybe I'll include in there Kyle Tucker. So I guess we're up to 6. But like outside of those 6, nobody's allowed to challenge. Like the challenges are reserved for if you're a 3-time All-Star or more. Otherwise, go away and continue. Or if your like walk rate is higher than your strikeout rate. I don't know what the rules would be. But catchers only and the top 6 guys in the lineup only. Everybody else, sorry. Tough luck.
The most entertaining part of the challenge system will be watching some guys get served a piece of humble pie when they tap their helmet in frustration. Like, I can't believe that call just got made. And then they look up at the board and say, oh, I'm so wrong.
Absolutely. Our guy David chiming in with the super chat. Going back to the conversation on pitchers. Do you think the Dodgers will load manage their pitchers? Wink, 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 like they did last year. Snell, Glasnow, etc. David, I have no idea what you're talking about. The Dodgers would be so far above reproach on this possible conversation. MLB has made clear that you're not allowed to do this. So I honestly, David, am offended at the suggestion that the Dodgers would load manage anybody. I think Snell had a real injury for like a month and a half, and then he came back pitching great. So I don't know what to tell you, David. I don't know, Bruce, why the Dodgers would ever do this.
Yeah, I don't think that they will be load managing, but I also am expecting some month-and-a-half long sudden IL stints where they keep throwing through the whole thing, bullpens, and then come back on the field, and it's like they never left.
Yeah. General body soreness, I believe, was something that Tyler Glasnow went on the injured list with last year. That was my personal favorite. I mean, yes, Snell, Glasnow, none of these guys are making more than 25 starts. Yamamoto would be the only one, but again, with World Baseball Classic, I could see a world where, hey, take a month off and come back. Ohtani's going to be pitching every 7 or 8 days, probably. I imagine there are going to be some skipped starts in there as well. Emmett Sheehan, they're not going to want to make 30 starts. Like, I don't think the Dodgers, I would be surprised, Bruce, if they had a single pitcher that makes above like 25 and a half starts this year.
I think Ohtani is the most interesting guy now because there's been a lot of talk these last few days about him wanting to win Cy Young and expecting himself to be in the talks for that. And hearing all that, like you and I have talked about it on this show a few times of that just doesn't seem like it's a possibility because he's not going to throw enough. But I also think like Ohtani's the type that it's like, it's a marketing thing. It's the brand of Shohei Ohtani. Like I think that there's a very real world where he's pressuring the Dodgers and saying, I want to go out there and I want to pitch every 6 or 7 days and I want to stay on that schedule the whole year and that's how I'm going to be.
Yeah. I think Ohtani, if he's on the schedule that we're talking about, sure, like let him pitch every quote unquote time it is his turn. But if it's once a week, I think we're having a different I just don't know. I mean, I'd have to go look at how many weeks there are in a Major League Baseball season. He's probably going to get above that 25 and a half number. But I mean, for you, Bruce, if I gave you over or under 25 and a half, the most starts that any Dodger pitcher makes this year, would you take the over or the under?
I think I'll take the over. If someone sneaks in at 26 or something, maybe like Emmett Sheehan or if Gavin Stone or River Ryan stay healthy the whole year. But I don't think that that's a guarantee by any means. It's the whole point of us talking about how many guys they have that are capable of making good starts is lending to the idea that they're going to make sure nobody makes too many, spread the love, and make sure everybody's healthy heading into October.
Okay, Yamamoto made 30 starts last year. Do you want to guess which Dodger made the second most and how many?
I feel like could it be Emmett?
Emmett Sheehan was 6th on the Dodgers with 12 starts.
Oh my gosh, I'm not even close. I'm thinking
this
back.
Is a good game. I love looking up random stats and putting people on the spot, so I'm apologizing in advance. Yamamoto is 1, Sheehan is 6.
Number 2. Well, I'm thinking through the aces. Like, obviously, it wasn't Glasnow. It wasn't Snell.
Glasnow was 3rd with 18 starts. Snell was 7th with 11 starts.
Just hit me.
Kershaw,
really? Because I was thinking
starts.
that, and I was like, there's just no way.
22 starts for Kershaw, 18 for Glasnow, 18 for Dustin May. Friendly reminder, he stayed healthy for the entirety of his time on the Dodgers. Otani with 14, Sheehan with 12, Snell with 11, Sasaki with 8, Gonsolin and Knack made 7. I'm going to be honest. Landon Knack making 7 starts, I don't remember any of them.
It was early in the year. He got kind of buried because he got optioned a few times, like really early, to where then they had to play the option game where he kind of got stuck in Oklahoma City because they had taken him on the train too many times, and he was just down there because they
He was
couldn't
also
keep
really
bringing him
bad
up.
in Oklahoma City too, which didn't
He
help.
was. It was a tough year for Landon. I still think like if the option thing wasn't an issue, then and he would have still gotten some more spot starts put his way, but it was a tough year for Knack. I think that he's got a big season to try and bounce back and prove that he's still on this level of the River Ryans and Gavin Stones as part of the rotation depth.
Yeah. Just a friendly reminder that Clayton Kershaw made 22 starts, 112 innings, 3.36 ERA, and all of the underlying stuff was good. Expected ERA 3.8, FIP 3.5. Like just an absolute hoss. Just has to be said that once again, he pitches, he was awesome, never fails.
That's hilarious to think that Clayton Kershaw made that. I wouldn't have gone there at all.
No, I was looking at this list and I'm like, I think Bruce could have 12 guesses before he would get to Kershaw and Dustin May. Like, I think he would honestly start naming other people. And fitting 22 starts for Clayton Kershaw. It's a beautiful thing.
You know? May is the really funny one because I knew that he pitched like pretty much the whole time he was in the organization, but like it doesn't feel like he was the Dodger. He was so bad, and then he was cast out for not nothing because they got back a couple good prospects, what felt like it should have been nothing.
Yeah. Again, people, by the way, just a side note, pat myself on the back a tiny bit. People hate my Conforto bold prediction. Friendly reminder that another one I nailed is I called preseason that Dustin May would get traded at the deadline. Everyone said I was crazy, can never have too much starting pitching. Just, throwing it out there every once in a while. All right, let's get to one other news item here before taking questions. MLBTV partnering with ESPN. I got a DM about this the other day. I had not been paying close attention, which is a mistake because I rely on MLBTV to watch the Dodgers. And I will start off by saying there is some misinformation out there. So hopefully we can clear this up. Here's the most important thing that most people need to hear. No, you do not need an ESPN Unlimited subscription in order to have MLBTV. I'll repeat. You do not need to have an ESPN Unlimited subscription in order to have MLBTV. For most people, you will register for MLBTV through ESPN, which will give you a 1-month subscription to ESPN Unlimited for free. But you can cancel that and you maintain your MLB TV option. You might just, depending on where you are, what you're paying for, you might watch games in the MLB app, or the ESPN app. But it's worth pointing that out. That's important. If you are an in-market Los Angeles Dodgers person, you can pay for Sportsnet LA Plus for $199.99 for the entire year. So $200 for the entire year gets you Sportsnet LA and every game that is on it. Or you can pay monthly $30 a month for that. If you are out of network, this includes MLB Network, Minor League Baseball, MLB Big Inning, all of that kind of thing. If you're out of market, you can pay $150 for MLB TV via ESPN. So this is what I was saying. If you want all of MLB TV for the entire season, you pay for it through ESPN. You do not need an ESPN subscription, although you'll get one for free for a month. $150 gets you everybody. Or this is kind of the new thing they are doing. Dodgers specific for $129.99 out of market. For $130, you can get only the Dodgers out of market games there as well. So for somebody like me who's living in Portland, I basically have the options of $130. I only get to watch Dodgers games, or $150. I can watch any baseball game. If you're in Los Angeles, it's $200 for Sportsnet LA. Again, that does not include all the national TV games, Peacock games, Apple TV games, whatever. But I would imagine Sportsnet LA is probably getting 92% of Dodger games this year. So it's a lot of baseball for $199 a year. So clear stuff up a little bit. Honestly, I'll say from the out of market, that's the only one I pay attention to. It's pretty much the same amount of money I've been paying. The Dodgers only option is honestly kind of cool because I don't really care about watching a ton of Cardinals versus Brewers games on a Tuesday night. That's just me. So that's positive. But what's your initial thoughts, Bruce, on all this?
It's funny to hear you say that last part because I was getting ready to say that I've thought for a while now because I used to subscribe to NBA League Pass and all those. They always have an option to just do one team. And I've always thought that one team option is the biggest scam in the world because they knock like $10 off and then say, okay, you can only watch one team out of all of them now.
$20, Bruce. $20 off.
$20,
okay?
yeah. Because I live for waking up on a Wednesday morning or a Thursday morning and watching a travel game between the Reds and the White Sox, and I live for that. That is my favorite style of baseball.
You're a better man than me. It's just like, I mean, in theory, I understand you're like, man, for $20, I get like 29 times more baseball games. And then I get into it and I'm just like, 162 is a lot of Dodger games for me, and let alone watching other people play. So good for you. I do see a lot of people pointing out that T-Mobile does typically offer free MLB TV for their subscribers. Somebody in the chat, let me know. Has that been confirmed again for this year? Hypothetically, in theory, I might have had a family member who had some extra family members on their T-Mobile plan who didn't care about baseball, who was hooking your boy up. So if T-Mobile has announced that will be happening again, let me know, because I will be reaching out to said family member to see if that offer is still on the table.
The other good way to watch Dodger games locally that I've used the last couple of years is I think that with Spectrum, you have to be mobile and internet. But I've got Spectrum mobile and internet in my apartment, and it lets you you can like watch Dodger games. There's like a code, you log in through your Spectrum account, whatever, on MLB TV, and then you just boom, you can watch it on MLB.TV. You've got access to Dodger games, and you don't have to do any of the hypothetical VPN dodging and all that stuff to get into MLB TV to watch Dodger games. So I've been really happy with Spectrum doing that the last couple of years. That allows me to watch the Dodgers in market without it being too big a problem or too expensive.
Yeah, Matty Man confirming in the chat that if you have phone and internet, he said, then you get the Dodgers for free as well. So
Lakers too.
What's that?
Lakers too. So it's honestly a pretty good deal. When I first, I don't know why it sounds like I'm doing a Spectrum advertisement now, but when I first moved in here, they had a deal like I get the internet, got a free year of mobile, and then get to watch the Dodgers and Lakers for free. It's a pretty good pitch.
There you go. There you go. And I do see, by the way, somebody says, Jeff, give us your login for MLB. T-Mobile has the contract for MLB until 2028, I'm told. So there you go. Benefit. So there's some options. If you've got T-Mobile, if you want to buy Spectrum phone and internet, or you can pay $200 if you're in LA, $130 if you're out of LA, and an extra $20 if you're out of LA and you want to watch the Reds versus the Rays on a Wednesday at 11 a.m. with Bruce. So
the crazy thing for me is that now, because I get the Dodger games through Spectrum, I have MLB TV for everybody else but the Dodgers, and I love it.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Good for you, though. Happy for you. All right, let's get to some questions. All caps questions. Throw those in the chat. We got about 15 more minutes here on a Sunday night to answer those. I see a food question we've got in the chat already about milkshakes, and I have some thoughts. I may have gone and got some milkshakes on Valentine's yesterday. Scout asks this, Bruce, is Paul Gervais going to get a chance to pitch this year? What do you think? You think he makes his debut with the Dodgers at some point in 2026?
Oh, yeah. And he pitched like a cup of coffee. And he appeared in that Colorado series after the trade deadline. And I think he'll be one of the guys that's on the shuttle. There's always that group of, if you're on the 40-man roster and you're a pitcher that is healthy, you're going to be pitching for the Dodgers at some point. And I think that he's plenty good enough to be part of that group. I wouldn't be surprised if he winds up pitching in like 15 games or maybe even a little bit more than that.
There you go. Back to back asks thoughts on the new/leaked jerseys, new spring training jerseys, leaked potential blue road jerseys on Fanatics Korea, and leaked gold jerseys that resemble the 2021 gold program. I saw blue ones. I saw the Korea ones. Have you seen any of these, Bruce?
I haven't seen any leaks. I've seen the spring training jerseys without the piping, and I hate them. They look like a knockoff to me, and I think that taking away the piping was highly unnecessary. But now they look like Little League jerseys that they get passed out for 11-year-olds, and there just is no detail. But I haven't seen any of the leaked ones.
The Fanatics Korea ones that have been leaked are blue jerseys with Los Angeles across the front in white, and then the numbers in red on the front. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I couldn't tell you how different that is from some other ones. But it was labeled as Nike LA Dodgers alternate stadium jersey. These have been pretty reliable, by the way, because like I think it was the Pop-Tart ones that got leaked on like some fanatic site in a different country last year. Or no, it showed up in a store in Korea or something like that. Like, I don't know how they let this stuff happen. But there you go. I have not seen the leaked gold jerseys. I think somebody said they were pulling it off of like there was a Dave Roberts bobblehead picture that was leaked that had the gold. So I don't know. I shout out to the people that are looking this stuff up. I think the 2021 hats are the best hats they've ever done with just the gold outline, not the full gold LA. I am very much hoping that they do those again in 2025, but there you go. Some people, by the way, what do you think about the spring training hats with the cactus on them? Allegedly these sold out, and yet I haven't found anybody that likes them necessarily. Do you like those?
Yeah, I think they're fine. They're cool. Like they always do something unique. Is the fun way to put it with the spring training hats. Like it's just a branding thing. They're always going to do something else to sell new jerseys. I think that's the same thing with the Dodgers taking the piping away. It's not like it costs them money to put piping on a jersey, but it might make them money to have people say, "Oh, there's a new blue jersey to buy." So whatever. I don't really pay too much attention to it because they're always going to have something different for people to go buy.
Yeah. It was, by the way, I see our guy Matthew Moreno tweeting it out that it was the Dave Roberts bobblehead has him in a gold jersey, gold outline on the jersey, and then a gold hat with 2 stars on it for back-to-back. So if that's real, there you go. All right, let's get to some questions here. Here we go. Jay says, barring Snell, who's already been hurt, and Yamamoto, who will be great again this year, what's your overall trust that the starting pitching rotation stays healthy from 1 to 10? Like a 0? Is 0? I mean, he said 1 to 10, so I guess I'll say 1. Like, if you're asking, do I think Glasnow and Emmett Sheehan and Shohei Ohtani are all just going to like make all of their starts? I would put that at a confidence level as low as I'm allowed to.
Yeah, me too. If the question is, we have to define what healthy is here, because if healthy is go into October with all these guys, then maybe you could talk me into like a 3 or a 4. But if we're talking like in the rotation from opening day through the final day of the 162 grind, like there's legitimately 0 chance.
Yeah. There you go. GI asks, now that it's looking like there will be at least 3 to 4 guys going to the 60-day, any guesses as to who they add to the 40-man roster? My guess is it's like the next Michael Ciani to roll through town is basically going to be the type. Somebody with options would be my guess. And from there, your guess is as good as mine.
I think that at the very beginning of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if they look for like right-handed batting infielder to fill the sort of role that Andy Ibanez would have been in, since Kike Hernandez isn't going to be healthy right away. If Edmund starts the year on the injured list, I think they could go grab somebody who will be that platoon with Max Muncy at third base. Other than that, I don't know if there's any like super big needs if they want to like go add a reliever to the 40-man or something. If they have an open spot in the bullpen, it could be that. That's just kind of where that last spot would go to whatever the final need on the 26-man roster is.
Ella Shiva asks, will the Dodgers trade Ryan Ward before the season starts, Bruce?
I don't think that I don't know. They don't have to. If another team had somebody get hurt in spring training or something, or all of a sudden they had a huge need in the corner outfield and they called up the Dodgers and said, well, it would give you something like half decent. It wouldn't be anything crazy to take Ryan Ward off their hands, then maybe. But I don't think the Dodgers are going to be spending their time leading up to open day specifically trying to shop Ryan Ward.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of need him. Again, we think about often need as just like who are the guys who are starting and maybe one level beneath them. But it is worth pointing out that the way that the Dodgers roster is currently constructed, and especially with Kike missing the first half of the season, you've got the 3 starters in Teo, Pages, and Kyle Tucker. You've got Alex Call behind them. And then it's Ryan Ward, like Michael Ciani's in the mix, but he's basically Justin Dean. So I do think there's a world where Ryan Ward is actually like playing for the Dodgers in somewhat meaningful moments at points this season. So I don't think they're going to be just looking to trade him for the sake of trading him. We've gone over this before. Do I think it would be good for him to get traded? Yes. Do I think that matters? No, because the Dodgers are in the business of doing what's good for them.
They're in a place of one injury in the corner outfield means Ryan Ward is starting every day against right-handed pitchers. So like they're not going to feel a need to trade him. I think it's not impossible for them to sneak him onto the opening day roster on the bench either, even if they wind up with everybody healthy going in. He still has a role right now, so they're not going to have to trade him. They could send him down again, and I hope that doesn't happen for Ryan Ward's sake, but the Dodgers don't really have any pressure to get rid of him by any means.
Totally. By the way, this just reminded me, there was somebody who had a super chat last show that did not get put up. I mentioned that we were having issues with the chat, which I understand is like a widespread StreamYard issue, which is who we use. So I want to apologize to that person. And if that person is in here, I believe Baseball Geek was the person, but if you're in here and you have a question, please go ahead and send that. We apologize that didn't get up. I just was reminded of that from last time. Bloodhound asks, do you see Bobby Edward Miller making 5 starts this year? I presume in Los Angeles.
Yeah, because maybe in Miami or something. I think that.
Do you think he makes 5 Major League Baseball starts this season? I'll rephrase it.
I'll say yeah, because if it winds up being depth with the Dodgers, if he's not going to be able to make a spot start in LA, then he's not going to be on the roster unless they just fully commit to the relief thing, which I don't know. It just seems like it's so demoralizing for me to think about that. It's a very real possibility that that's what they do. And then he winds up in the group with, like I just mentioned, Paul Gervais, if you can hold your right arm up and fresh some of these days, they're going to need you. He could be part of that group, but like he's in such a nowhere place right now that I think the clock is ticking on if you can't contribute to the big league roster in some way, then he's not going to be here anymore.
Yeah. Let's see. Elishiva asks, do you think Blake Trinan will be any good this year?
Yes, I think that he'll.
Back.
Well, I don't think that he was like legitimately horrible last year. He wasn't the Blake Trinan shutdown level, but he'll be a contributor in the bullpen, and it's not going to be like a sub-3 ERA anymore, I don't think, but he could live in like the 3.75 range, and that'll be good enough for him.
So I was looking at his numbers from last year. Do you know what his ERA was in the regular season last year?
Is it higher than I'm sounding like I think it is?
5.4.
Holy moly. Yeah, that is much higher.
And then it was a 6.75 in the postseason. That was across basically 32 total innings.
I can think back to the postseason and remember that I was one of the guys that was specifically saying, please stop pitching him in high leverage. So I don't want to be mistaken. I was some huge Blake Trinan believer, but I think we're talking about a reliever. The regression and bouncing all over the place is regular. I still think that they have him back because they think that he can be at least like middle reliever kind of type. I think he's still got the stuff for that.
I agree. And it's worth pointing out his strikeouts per 9 was actually a career high last year. The problem was that his walk rate tripled. So if you can find a middle ground between 12 Ks per 9 and 6.5 walks per 9 and bring that down to 10.8 and 2.1, which it was the year before, then I think you have something. I'm with you. I'm not expecting him to be one of the best relievers in baseball, which he has been at points in his career. But I mean, he had 3 straight sub-2 ERA years prior to last year. I think it's reasonable to say he's not all that far removed from being awesome. And the stuff still looks good. That's the other piece with Trinan.
It was 32 games. That's the thing. 26 innings is not enough to hang your hat on and say that he has to be a north of 5 ERA again. I don't think that he'll be sub-2 again or sub-3, but I think he can go out and pitch in middle relief. And if he's even better than that, or if any injuries happen, I can see him getting some 7th and 8th innings too.
D-Nation Life says the high-resolution pictures of you guys on the thumbnail throw me for a loop. I also want to say we have yet to win without Kike on the team. Agreed on the Kike piece. And yes, we are changing a little bit of our branding, as you've noticed. That's just the way YouTube apparently works, is you put pictures of yourselves on there. And so stay tuned because there's more of those coming. That's the plan for the near future. So if you don't like that, I apologize. And if you do like that, I don't know, maybe you need to get checked out or something like that. So there you go. But apparently that's what YouTube does. You click on more stuff if people's faces are on it. So
algorithm, man.
I can assure you we are not doing it because we want our faces on the YouTube thumbnails. I can promise you that. Nomo Splitter asks, better regular season record, Padres or Giants?
Padres.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think the Giants are going to be very good.
The Giants with the Luis Arraez signing might have they stayed exactly where they were going to be, which is 81 games.
Yeah. Noisy Ninja asks, with Will going to the World Baseball Classic, how important do you think this spring is for Dalton rushing?
I think that we have to temper our expectations, because spring training is not the most important thing in the world. It's easy for us to get caught up in the outside of looking at the results in spring training and kind of blowing it out of proportion a little bit. It's not the end of the world. It's much more an operations thing and getting back in the swing and all that stuff. That said, Dalton Rushing is one of the guys that spring training and having a good performance, not just in the numbers on the field, but in the whole operation as a big league catcher officially in spring training this year for the first time, especially with Will Smith gone, he'll be the guy. And so I think that it'll be important for him to step into those shoes and really get comfortable with the idea of being a big league catcher heading into the new year.
Yeah. And I would just love for him to have some offensive success in spring training. Not that spring training numbers matter all that much but I think it's dumb to just say blanket, like I don't care about any of these numbers, because I don't care about what Freddie Freeman does in spring training, but I do care what Dalton Rushing and Alex Freeland and Ha-Seong Kim and guys like that do in spring training.
The way that spring training numbers matter is not in a baseball operation sense. It's in a confidence sense. If you go out there, and I think that's where it really helps someone like Dalton Rushing, because he struggled so much last year. For the guys that are established and don't have stuff to worry about, they're fine. But for a guy like Rushing, for like someone like Andy Pages coming off the October that he had, just the confidence boost of going out and finding some success, having balls find grass in spring training would be a big thing.
Absolutely. Last baseball one here. Yangi asks, do you believe Sasaki will win 10 plus games in 2026? If the over-under is 9.5, Bruce, are you taking the over or the under?
That's a good question. I think it's a good line. I feel my gut says under, just because I don't know how long he's going to be pitching in the starting rotation, not only just in a sense of whether he gets moved to the bullpen, but also in a sense of injuries, innings management, all those kind of things. We just finished talking about how the Dodgers had one guy make north of 25 starts, and Clayton Kershaw was second at 22. So there just aren't very many starts being made by most of the guys in this rotation. So from a likelihood standpoint, I think it's way more likely he wins less than 10 than that he wins more.
Yamamoto made 30 starts last year with a 2.49 ERA and had 12 wins. For context here. So
he also got like snake bit more than
100%.
Anybody in like recent history.
The Dodgers, if you had set the over under at 7.5 wins, only 2 Dodgers went over last year. So, and number 3 on that list was Ben Kasparius. It was not like a full-time starter. So, I know everyone thinks I'm just a hater, but I would be taking the under on 10 for basically any Dodgers pitcher other than Snell and Yamamoto and Glass now. I mean, blindly, I'm taking the under. Those guys, then it's like I'd have to think hard about how many starts are we making and that kind of thing. But anybody who's hovering around the 6, 7, 8, 9 range on our starting pitcher rankings, probably an under. All right. First, David wants to say, Jeff, please ask Bruce to turn off his X preferences to allow pictures to his account. I'd love to include him in his food pictures. David sends us food pictures. Apparently, he can't tag you in them. So just as a heads up, David would like you to know that that's a thing.
Is that like a tag on so that when he posts the picture, he can tag me in it?
I believe so.
Okay, because I'll need to look at this and try and figure it out. I didn't even know that was something my account didn't allow.
It's fair. Well, you're going to get some good food pictures in your future.
Go.
Aaron says, I'm baking some cookies right now. What are your favorite cookies?
Ooh, my favorite cookie that I've had recently, there were some homemade cookies that I'm going to try my best to remember exactly what was in them. The family in New Mexico made them over Christmas. It was peanut butter base was like the big thing. There were marshmallows in there. There was like a Rice Krispie, so it had that sort of like a crispiness to it. And then there was something else in there too. But those are the 3 main ingredients that you'd taste, and it was absolutely fire. I ate when I was over there like probably 15 of them in like a span of less than a week. They were so good.
I'll just start with plain chocolate chip is fantastic. There's a reason it's the most popular cookie, and a good chocolate chip cookie is elite. I will say there is a camp that I go to that makes a snickerdoodle cookie that is the best snickerdoodle I've ever had. And so that would probably be my top tier. I mean, if you mix in peanut butter or caramel or something of that, like I'm not going to complain, but like when I go to Crumble, I'm just give me the original chocolate chip cookie because it's unbelievable. So
I think chocolate chip cookies are an interesting experiment because there's some chocolate chip cookies that are not very good, but like the ones that are like truly like a warm chocolate chip cookie where the chocolate's a little melty, and that's like pretty much as good as it can possibly get. I also see a shout out in the chat from Hawaiian Kira, the white chocolate macadamia nut. I think that was Hawaiian Kira, or it was Lara. Sorry. Macadamia nuts are great too. I like the white chocolate a lot.
Danny with the low key fire call here. Subway cookies are fire. Subway cookies are why Subway has amazing cookies is beyond me. But some people, yeah, okay. Wendy's cookies, like I didn't even know Wendy's had cookies. I believe Blake. Don't quote me on this. I believe he's a McDonald's cookies guy. So apparently, the fast food places have their cookie situation figured out. So, are you a soft or crispy cookie guy?
Crispy on the outside, soft on the inside.
Yeah, I don't want those like Tate's cookies that everybody loves. That's like you just snap them in half. I want none of that, but I want a little bit of crisp, but not a ton of crisp. Very, very needy on this one. Okay, great question though. Jedi Engineer asks, "What is the best kind of Valentine's chocolate to give and to receive?" Bruce,
Jeff, how about you answer this one first? You're the one with a wife.
So I gave all three of my girls. I think the dollar store by me had. I'm realizing in hindsight they had mixed their Valentine's stuff with the incoming Easter stuff. So I got them some chocolate covered marshmallow bunnies, which I think chocolate covered marshmallows are fantastic. So we did that. Personally, I love See's candy and I love their Scotch mallow, which is marshmallow, caramel, and then I think dark chocolate on the outside. And you can just buy a box exclusively of those. So I'm going with See's candy Scotch mallows is the best kind of candy to receive for sure. To give, my wife has a bunch of food allergies. So there you go. My three girls, not all three girlfriends. Settle down in the chat. Okay. 3 daughters. All right. Yeah, that's what I go. See's candy, Scotch mallows. There you go.
That's what's up. I don't really have an answer here.
Last question from Richard here. If you had to go for milkshakes, would it be McDonald's, In-N-Out, Foster Freeze, 31 flavors, Del Taco, Jack in the Box, or Dairy Queen? Bruce?
Among the options laid out here, I think Dairy Queen is the heavyweight favorite, and Jack in the Box is the under the radar potential winner.
Wow. I'm not sure I've had a Jack in the Box milkshake. They're good.
Yeah, I think we had this chat once, like right after I joined the show. I'm a big Jack in the Box shake guy that for like a lot of times when I was little, like if I ever went, because it's Jack in the Box isn't a place you go all the time, but I knew Jack in the Box as a like.
To be fair, if you do go to Jack in the Box all the time, people, that's totally okay. All right, we're glad you're watching our show, but Bruce doesn't go all the
time. Someone in the chat said Del Taco. I've never once had a Del Taco shake, and I've had to Del Taco like 4 times in the last decade. But Jack in the Box shakes are under the radar pretty good. I like the strawberry one.
Okay. Foster Freeze is amazing. They have, and this is like a common thing now, but they have like basically, I think they call it a root beer freeze. It's basically like a root beer shake. Incredible. But last night I went to Shake Shack, aptly named, because I got a notification that they were running a special. They had this like Valentine's Day shake and it was buy one, get one free. Now, it's worth pointing out this shake was $9 on its own. So thank the Lord it was buy one, get one free. But it was basically their vanilla custard whipped up with strawberry puree. It had a chocolate shell around the outside of the cup. So like the cup was lined with like crunchy chocolate. Then it had more chocolate on top. And then it had these pink chocolates mixed in. It was basically like a chocolate covered strawberry milkshake. I'm just saying it was unbelievable. I don't know if I would have paid $9 for it and been thrilled, but went and picked up one for me, one for my 3 daughters to split. And it was fantastic. That's all I'm going to say.
I think that's the toughest thing about the milkshake game for me is the milkshake inflation has gotten pretty ridiculous. So I don't get milkshakes like very much at all anymore. My favorite kind of milkshake is like the real malt sort of like I'm a huge like as thick as they can make it sort of milkshake kind of guy. The ones like you'll get in a diner and it comes where they put it in the cup and then they put it in the tin can thing that they blended it in, and you can that's my favorite kind of milkshake.
Yeah, I'm with you. I will say, I think In-N-Out, McDonald's, their low-key, their chocolate shake is really good. The last time I had it, which it's been a while. In-N-Out, obviously fantastic. I will say, I'm just like normally a straight down the middle chocolate milkshake. If I go to Baskin Robbins, I might do their mint chocolate chip shake because I think that's good. But I'm not a vanilla milkshake guy. I'm not a strawberry milkshake guy. The Neapolitan, some people are into, not my jam. Like just chocolate for me at all of these places.
I'm a strawberry's my number 1 seed, but at In-N-Out, every single time I'm Neapolitan, no matter what.
Okay, there you go. So we disagree. Shamrock Shake from McDonald's. No thanks. Just
It's actually kind of good. I liked that one. I had it like once, and I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm with you, by the way, on like Johnny Rockets old school where they'd give you the tin.
Yes.
To it.
Oh my gosh, I haven't thought about Johnny Rockets in forever. That place is great.
I know they had one where I was growing up.
It got way too expensive, so I stopped going there.
It's true. All right. On that note, on the note of milkshakes, that will do it for us tonight. As always, we appreciate everybody on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter for joining us. Those listening after the fact via podcast, thank you as well. 5.5 days away from the Dodgers playing real baseball. And yes, they have reported. And so we are getting press conferences as guys pitching. So if you have not yet subscribed right here to the Dodger Blue YouTube channel, go ahead and do that. Tons of content posted every single day. Of course, over at DodgerBlue.com and then Dodger Blue app as well. What do we have something good in the chat, Bruce? I see you laughing.
I just saw someone say that only Dodgers players can afford Shake Shack.
That's true. That's true. Shake Shack. I'll say this: Shake Shack does a pretty good job if you're on their email list of having some specials that makes it affordable. But if there's not a special going on, it's insane. So $9 the shake was insane. My wife was not thrilled about that, but I was like, you know what? It's Valentine's Day. I'm buying something for me tonight. So there you go. That is Bruce. I am Jeff, folks. Enjoy the rest of your night. As always, go Dodgers. And yes, still champs.